If you've ever got some footage of your swimming and you're not sure exactly what you should be looking for, let's take a look at a swimmer, Oscar, who sent through his video a little while ago. We're going to see what he could do to become a faster swimmer. Now, looking through here, you'll notice that his body position is quite good. He seems to sit high with his head, hips, and heels at the surface. That's obviously a really good thing to be doing. So his body position looks great, as does his head position, where he's looking slightly forwards there. All right, and the top of the head's above the water. That part looks great. One of the things that I notice here is that there's a lot of rotation going on through the shoulders and through the hips. Now, rotation is really good to have, but too much of it will actually slow you down and make your catch harder to achieve, or get a good catch, I should say. Now, what you might also see here is that one of the reasons I think he's probably over-rotating through his hips and through his shoulders is this hand comes really close to the body through his recovery. So that hand stays really close to his side. You do sometimes see elite swimmers doing that, especially if they're swimming very slowly. But it's not a great place to be if you're looking to pick up the pace, increase the tempo. The hand will usually come around a little bit wider than that. So he might be trying to go too much of a high elbow recovery, which comes too close to the body, which then causes his shoulders to over-rotate. What I'd suggest there is see how you feel actually going a little bit wider. That's a bit better. That's more of a comfortable position. That's a little bit wider, and that should make it easier to rotate less. So first thing would be rotate quite a bit less through the hips and shoulders. If we were looking front on, we'd see his shoulders would be very close to 90 degrees. We want to bring that back to about 35 to 40 degrees instead. The other thing that I can notice here is that he's getting his breath fairly low in the stroke. I'll link to a video above which talks about where you should be getting your breath. But if you look at this part here, as he goes to turn, see how his head's quite low in the water there? It's going to make it difficult to get that breath quickly and comfortably if you're trying to keep your head super low. He'd be better off turning his head quicker. So turn it to the side, come back quicker, and allowing that head to sit just a little bit higher out of the water so he doesn't feel like he has to breathe from almost underneath the water there. So he could adjust his breathing position. The other thing I'd consider too is shortening the stroke just a fraction at the back. So if we have a look at where does he finish the stroke, he's pushing back a really long way because the arm is almost straight at the back of the stroke. So he's push back almost as far as he can reach there, and similar on the right side. So he pushes back, the arm's completely straight. Now it's good to be long in the front and in the back, but like anything, you can do it too much. If you push back as far as you possibly can and that elbow is straight, so the arm's fully extended, you sometimes get a little bit stuck coming out of the water and you lose some of that propulsion. So there's going to be a gap or a bit of a dead spot in the stroke where there's nothing that's putting pressure on the water. So his left hand is reaching forwards, his right hand has finished pushing back, and so there's this point through here where he's kind of lost that pressure on the water. He'd be better off just coming out a little bit earlier rather than here. That way you can keep this arm coming through, and it will increase his stroke rate a little bit for no more effort, but he'll also keep that pressure on the water as he's going through. So he's just kind of holding it out there a little bit long, creating a little bit of a dead spot in the stroke, and just causing the stroke rate to be a little bit lower than what's probably ideal. And you might be thinking, well, isn't it best to have as lower stroke rate as you can and just go for maximum distance per stroke? But your speed's a combination of your distance per stroke, how far you travel, and the rate at which you take those strokes. So you can't ignore the fact that stroke rate's in there. And for him, I'd say you'd be better off just picking up the tempo or the cadence, stroke rate, a little bit, and just shortening the stroke a fraction at the back so it can come over a little bit quicker to increase the stroke rate there. The other thing you might notice as we look at this side shot here, if you have a look at his kick, he generally kicks in a pretty good range, but because of that slight over rotation through the shoulders when he breathes, the legs do splay a bit wide. When they splay too wide, it increases the drag out the back. So we'd be looking to keep the legs just a little bit more behind his body line, and his body line is this thing here. So it can come outside of it, but not too much, because if the legs splay out, it increases the drag, and it's just like opening a parachute out behind you. It just slows you down as you do it. So that's probably a result more of that rotation. And I recently ran some clinics in Tasmania where I filmed about 70 swimmers, did the analysis for them. And one of the most common things that I saw there was over-rotation. There was only 2 or 3 swimmers that were under-rotating. A lot more were over-rotating through their hips and through their shoulders. So if you can find that sweet spot where it feels like you're rocking side to side rather than rolling, then you can keep that stroke rate up at a good tempo, which can actually be easier. And sometimes people think, well, if my stroke rate is faster, surely that means my heart rate's going to be higher. In some cases, yes. If you're really lifting the stroke rate up high, that's probably going to be the case. But it's almost like if you think of being on a bike and you're in the big gear and you're grinding away trying to get maximum sort of power every single pedal stroke. Similar thing when you swim. If you're going for maximum power every stroke, it's probably going to be harder than if you drop it down a gear. Just keep it ticking over like you would if you dropped it down a gear on the bike, and you could just keep it sort of spinning through. That's a lot easier for most people, especially if they're swimming distance events, be it a triathlon swim, be it an open water swim. You're probably better off sitting at that sort of effort level and cadence rather than trying to have maximum distance per stroke, which can be quite tiring. There's a time and a place for that, but for most people that I work with who are adult swimmers and triathletes, most of the people I coach through our membership, they are best off dropping it down a gear in terms of their effort level in order to be able to keep that sort of slightly faster stroke rate. So there's some of the key things I can see here. If you've got some footage of yourself swimming and you'd like me to take a look, I do these videos occasionally on our YouTube channel, and email it through to us through our website, through the contact form, and we'll do some of these over the next couple of months, and I'll give you some specific things that you could focus on if you're happy to share your footage to the world on our YouTube channel. So thanks for watching. See you next week.